We are essentially 1 month. Okay, a little bit lower than that. It's like 24 days, 27 days. Anyway, we are less than a month away from Las Vegas Raiders training camp. And before we get into camp, I think there are 3 trades that the Las Vegas Raiders, really Dave Ziegler, needs to make on the defensive side of the football before we get into training camp. Yes, there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of things answered, a lot of things going on, but I think there are 3 players that you need to at least make the call for and potentially do something with. So the first one is, yes, sending and this is the first trade, sending a 7th-round pick to the Buffalo Bills for defensive tackle Poona Ford. Yes, the former Seattle Seahawk over the last couple of years, and he's been a very good player for the Seahawks. Now, to kind of give you a background on who Poona Ford was coming up out of Texas, this dude was a guy that really wasn't seen to be that much of a stud, but I loved him coming out. This dude was 5'11", 303 pounds if he was an ounce. You just love to see him run-stuffing defensive tackle, but here was the overview according to Lance Zierlein back a couple years ago. So Ford played in a slant-heavy scheme in 2017 that asked him to try and disrupt in the gaps. While Ford flashed the ability to stack blocks and play with some strength at the point of attack, his lack of overall mass could make it tough for teams to see him in anything other than a penetrating 4-3 scheme. Ford has a shot at making the team, but his lack of physical traits will be a challenge. And yes, it never is easy if you're a shorter defensive tackle and you've just got more girth because, you do see a lot of those guys that, they don't get drafted early because teams don't like the fact that they're under 6 foot. But there's countless examples of guys that are under 6 foot, 303 pounds or more that can just make noise. And Poona Ford was the latest example of that. But you're seeing a guy, so you're probably asking yourself, Colton, why should the Raiders send a 7th-round pick for Poona Ford? This man has been one of the best run defenders in the entire NFL for 4 out of the last 5 years in the NFL. So came into the league in 2018, as we discussed, and absolutely blew the doors off. Yes, he was not all about that pass rush life. We're not going to sugarcoat it, but this man absolutely finds a way to get it done. You talk about just playing increasingly more snaps, 231 in his rookie year there, had a 91.5 PFF run defense grade. You love to see it. One of the most dominant run defending defenders or defensive tackles in the entire league. And then he absolutely goes out there and gets it. And I really feel like he's a guy that, quite honestly, you want to best utilize him in bringing him in a first 2 down or the first and second down type of scheme for your defense. So yes, he's not a 3-down defensive lineman, but a 7th-round pick for one of the best run-defending defensive tackles in the NFL, one that's been a big issue for the Raiders in the past, I think is a no-brainer. Now, yes, 2022 was his lowest year. You'll see there as the years went on, he did get lower in his run defense grade, but his pass rush grade, He's good enough to be able to get the job done on first and second down, but his run defense grade, he absolutely eats. And again, this last year wasn't the best, mainly because I don't think that the Seahawks were using him in the best possible way. I think he's a 500 snap and below type player for you on first and second down, and then taking him out on third down, keeping him fresh, because when he is under, at that, 5 to 600 and below type snap range, I think he does his best work. So like we saw in 2018, this man absolutely can get after it, and I think he deserves a shot. And I think it would really help out the Raiders' defense immediately, having a guy that plays first and second down. Then you can bring in Byron Young, anybody else to be in that, even Tyree Wilson, when he's healthy, bring him in on the inside to be on that NASCAR package. I would love to see it. But a 7th-round pick for Poona Ford, I think, would make a lot of sense in this scenario. The second trade that I think the Raiders need to make is sending a 4th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys for Jabril Cox. Now, Jabril Cox, to me, was one of my one of my favorite players coming up out of I believe it was the 2020 NFL draft. But this guy, it was not great. I'm not going to lie to you. 2021 was a draft, excuse me. But you're looking at a guy that he tore his ACL in his rookie year for the Cowboys. It was not pretty. I'm not here to sugarcoat it. But again, I do think he's a guy that has so much athletic talent that you really cannot deny it. And yes, they did draft DeMarvin Overshown this last year. And again, I understand the fact that, you don't draft a guy like that for the Dallas Cowboys unless you're planning on him seeing the field. But Jabril Cox, I think you give up a potentially a 3rd-round pick for a former 4th-round pick, mainly because he is a guy that is expected to do a lot of big things this year. And there's a reason for that, because he's an absolute stud. Played 3 years there at NDSU. But by the way, won a national championship in every single one of the years. Look at this. Literally won a national championship, I believe, according to Wikipedia, by the way, in 2017, 2018, and 2019. pretty much 3 straight national championships there for NDSU, but then came back for LSU and, did not disappoint. So this is according to, once again, Lance Zierlein here. The only difference in studying his tape from North Dakota State and LSU is that Cox looks substantially more explosive than anyone else on the field for the Bison. Yes, it's Bison, not Bison. He looks like he fits right in with the athletes at LSU, though. He'll need to be placed in a scheme where he can play proactive, attacking football rather than getting bogged down as a thinker. He's extremely fast with verified playmaking traits and credentials. His cover talent could make him quickly get on the field. He's below average in diagnosing and using his hands, which can help put him in recovery mode at times. However, his traits and talent should be enough to overcome those issues and help him make a solid 3-down starter within the first couple of seasons. And yes, like they said, he's a guy that not necessarily going to want to play in the box, but in the slot on the outside. Just a guy that he's got speed, he's got I couldn't even think of it, coverage talent for days. Like, literally, just get this man on the field, ask him to cover anybody. He's going to be just fine. And he just flies around. He makes plays. Honestly, for a 3rd-round pick or a 4th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys, I think this could be a huge steal for the Raiders, because I really do feel like he's going to be a guy that is on your defense for the next 5 to 8 years because of the fact of his coverage ability, his pass rush ability. He can play on the inside in terms of being an inside linebacker in a couple of different scenarios. Again, that's not ideally where he's going to be at, but again, you have him guard anybody, whether it's a tight end, whether it is a running back, because he's got the speed, he's got the size that you absolutely love, and I think that you need to give him a shot to be able to at least go out there and cover anybody. Now, the third, and now you'll see here, it was lower, middle, and now a higher round draft pick that we think needs to be done for the Las Vegas Raiders. The last one here, I think you send a 2nd-round pick to the Cardinals for a linebacker, corner, safety, whatever he is, Isaiah Simmons. Do y'all remember what Isaiah Simmons was coming up out of Clemson? Because I don't think some of you do. This man was an absolute stud. 6'3", 240, ran like a 4.3 at the combine, like just a freak, literally a freak. And so you'll see there his quote-unquote sophomore year there for Clemson, 9 tackles for loss, 88 total tackles, 2 sacks, a pick 6, and then came back and had over 100 tackles and 8 sacks, 16 tackles for loss in his last year there for Clemson. And quite honestly, again, I think he's a guy that he's not just overly athletic. Anybody can just be overly athletic, but he's literally a dude that is just a freak. You see there, he was compared to Darius Leonard back in the day, but his ascending hybrid talent with rare length, speed, and versatility to create mismatches for the offense, depending upon alignment. He's a bachelor's at 3 positions: slot, corner, safety, linebacker, but could earn a master's degree in complex workload with a more focused and defined job description than jack of all trades. He can handle zone or man coverage from a variety of spots on the field, which gives defensive coordinators a chance to disguise blitz packages and exotic post-snap looks. He'll miss run fits and can be misdirected due to a lack of instincts near the line of scrimmage, but his playmaking range outweighs those concerns. For now, his unique potential to spy and shrink the field against dual-threat quarterbacks can push him way up the draft board. And yes, again, we're talking about a guy that came in immediately for the Cardinals and did some good things. Again, we showed you the college side of things, but here is the last 3 seasons for the Cardinals. So I really want to bring you guys' attention to his last year here with the Cardinals. So yes, he can cover. That's one thing. That's great. Fantastic. He can run a 4.3, guard anybody. That's fantastic. Look at his pass rush snaps. This man had 65 pass rush snaps and 4 sacks. I'm no mathematician, but that's like 10% of the time he's going to get a sack, and he's getting pressure no matter what. So, yes, he's versatile. He can play all over the football field. He can do a lot of different things for you. He's okay in pass coverage, but I am becoming more and more convinced that the Arizona Cardinals have no idea. They absolutely have no idea how to play defensive talent, because you can look at Hassan Reddick back in the day when they drafted him. I believe it was like 2017. They drafted him like a top 15 pick. The man was never asked to pass rush, and then, his last year with the Cardinals had 12.5 sacks. They let him leave, which, okay, fine, but then he absolutely just destroyed the NFL with the Panthers, had 16 sacks last year with the Eagles in the Super Bowl, like just helping him reach the Super Bowl, just absolutely freaky. And yes, the thing about Isaiah Simmons is he can do all these different things for you. He can cover, he can play in the box to a degree, he can pass rush for you. I mean, he's just an absolute athletic freak, but I really feel like the Raiders sending only a second-round pick to get an absolute defensive freak like Isaiah Simmons on that side of the football with Tyree Wilson, with Max Crosby, with hopefully, Bilo Nichols, who's going to play a lot better this year at defensive tackle. The rest of that linebacking core, Divine Diablo, Marcus Epps, all these guys, I think it would make a lot of sense. And yes, I understand that at the end of the day, second-round pick might be high, but let's not forget this man was a former top 10 pick a couple of years ago for the Cardinals. So I think that just athletically with what he brings, what he would do for your defense for the Raiders, I just think it would make too much sense. And yes, only a second-round pick. Make it happen. Get this guy on your defense. He will immediately help elevate this defense for the Raiders. But that is it. That is 3 trades on the defensive side of the football that we think Dave Ziegler and the Las Vegas Raiders need to make before training camp. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment down below. But at the end of the day, let us know what you guys think about our 3 trades that we think the Raiders need to make before training camp.